Fine Music Breakfast with Annabelle Drumm.
And it's 6 minutes past 8 o'clock here at Fine Music Breakfast. I hope you're enjoying your morning and appreciating the rain happening outside. Currently it's 20 degrees in Sydney and we're looking for a high of 24. Penrith, very similar, 21 degrees, and they'll have a high of 25 today. Cloudy, lots of rain. We like that. Maybe a little bit of a thunderstorm and some light winds picking up in the afternoon. Tomorrow, very similar and just a little bit warmer. Now, in the studio, I have with me this morning a pioneering singer, composer and educator. Last year, she won the Sir Bernard Hines Memorial Award, also the Artists of the Year Critics' Choice Award from Limelight magazine, and the very prestigious Melbourne Prize for Music. I would like to welcome to the studio Deborah Cheetham.
Annabelle, it's so great to be here with you this morning and to hear the rain. Well,
Isn't
not
it?
in the studio, but to hear the rain on the roofs.
Well, you made it all the way through the rain to get here too.
Indeed, I did.
Thank you for coming in. I love hearing what you've been doing recently with your short black opera. So that's a whole project, in case people don't know about it. It's about
Yes.
looking after young Indigenous singers.
Absolutely. In fact, we celebrated our 10th anniversary last year with some wonderful projects and performances, and we've got a fairly big year ahead of us too as we celebrate 10 years since Australia's first Indigenous opera, Pecan Summer.
And you're bringing that back to the stage now.
Bringing it back to the stage in Melbourne in October for that celebration. Just 2 performances at the Melbourne Recital Centre in October.
Will you use new singers or the original ones?
Well, this is the lovely thing. You know, as you mentioned, our whole purpose is to nurture future singers who want to find a career in the very competitive world of classical vocal music in Australia. In October, we'll bring together most of the original cast plus the new generation of singers that we've been able to mentor and to nurture. So it's
How do you find them? How do you go out scouting for that talent?
Well, nowadays they find us, but really at the very beginning, it started just with a little advertisement in the Courier Mail and the National Indigenous Times well, then it was just print media. And now, of course, everything's online. 2 little advertisements. You know, we're offering some training in Melbourne if you'd like to come, if you've always wanted to be an opera singer. And we were flooded with inquiries and requests, and we ended up with a core company of 35 singers. They live all over Australia. Only a few live in Melbourne. They're from lots of different parts of Australia.
It's a big program.
Well, nowadays it is a large program. We also have children's choir, the Ungala Children's Choir.
I was going to ask you about your cheeky opera as well. It's coming up
Cheeky
this
opera.
year.
I'm so excited about that this year. So Cheeky Opera is based on a book by Dion Hastings and Johanna Bell called Cheeky Dogs. It's a series of books. You can look it up on social media. It's a wonderful, beautiful series of books. And Jessica Hitchcock and I are collaborating to write this opera that children of a primary school age or early high school can produce themselves. We'll teach them how to produce an opera.
So is it Indigenous inspired? Right, it is.
Yes, well,
but it's still operatic in its music style?
Exactly. The stories that come from Dion's drawings, his prize-winning drawings, and the book is much awarded too, and Johanna Bell, combined with a particular way of using language. You'll hear languages from where Dion lives up in Tennant Creek. You'll hear words that come from wherever you're producing the opera. So this is a unique part of the project. When the opera, let's say it's produced in Shepparton in Victoria, then the words for mother, father, sister, some of the animals, some of the geographical features, they'll come from the local language.
Right.
So,
and because it's written phonetically, that school teachers will be able to give them the right pronunciation?
Absolutely. You know, language, you would know this as all radio announcers and presenters must, is just practice. So we come across a wide variety of languages in classical music, say. And the Indigenous languages are no different to that. I mean, think about the first time you saw the word macchiato. You probably had to rehearse that a few times before you went to your barista. order. So it's just a matter of breaking down those syllables, asking a traditional owner or a language custodian to help you with the pronunciation. But we'll have a pronunciation guide,
right,
as we did in our book.
So it's a double
Dangala.
whammy, isn't it, really, for the primary school teachers to be able to introduce them to opera as well as give them some essence of the Indigenous language that is local to their school.
I mean, it is a double whammy. That's a great way of putting it. But I think if you're introducing opera at all, you're introducing another language. This just happens to be one that belongs to the place where they live.
That's a fantastic idea. I'm really looking forward to seeing that. I hope they'll be able to bring those up to some of the schools here in Sydney. I'd like to go and have a look at some of those. Now, I also have got a deep question for you. In the mood for a deep question?
I'm ready.
Fantastic. I often talk to people about Australian culture because, of course, we have the depth of the Indigenous culture, but our culture overall seems to change as things go along because we take pieces from other countries, I mean, including opera, right? That it's almost like culture in itself is a sort of a dynamic thing that changes depending on the inhabitants. What's your view on what culture is in Australia?
I think culture is something we build on. So there is the longest continuing human culture on this continent, something to be celebrated. And more people are realising now, hey, we didn't find out about this when we were in school, but we're finding out now. And this is a great cause for celebration. And even the traditional cultures of this land, they weren't static by any means. I mean, where I live on the Kulin Nations down in Melbourne, those nations saw an ice age. The explosion of volcanoes. I mean, how many people can say that? Well, actually, there are volcanoes exploding right now, so sadly, people are affected still. But the last ice age, the Bunurong can tell you about that. So that culture was always evolving, never static. For the last 200 and something years, depending on what part of Australia you live in, building more and more culture. What I'm interested in, though, is a deeper understanding of what has been here for something like 2,000 generations, so that's our foundation, so that we've got the solid foundation of knowing who we are and how we connect to this continent. And I think in this time of bushfires and it's
the perfect time to look at it,
It's the perfect time to look at it. And then everything else that's come here, everything else that's migrated to this country, we want to take all the best of that, learn from the worst of it, and we build an incredible society. You know, it might be left of centre, but I was listening to one of the top-ranking tennis players speak this week. I think it was Djokovic. And he said, coming to Melbourne and playing... They had a bushfire fundraising concert, I was going to say, not performance, match, that's the word I'm looking for. Coming to Melbourne and playing, I felt like I was back in Serbia. I had so many supporters. That's because there's such a large Serbian community, such a large Croatian community, the Italians, the Greeks. That is Australian society and those descended from the British. So we look at making sure that we understand our foundation, which is Indigenous culture, which has been here all along. And then we look for all the best parts of all the cultures that have migrated since.
And I find that often when I'm talking to Indigenous people that the focus is on unity, on respecting the land and unifying together, which I think is a beautiful message that we often lose. You often get the trendy people jumping up and down and trying to separate us. You know, and pointing that one out over there and this one over here is not helpful. When I hear the Indigenous people saying we need to unify and we need to respect the land, I think that's a wonderful message. And these bushfires, even though they are devastating, there's always something good that comes out of terrible things. And maybe that is the big thing for Australia, to really stop and respect that deep culture that you mentioned and to start listening to the elders as to how to manage these fires better. I think that would be good. We could talk about this for a very long time, but we don't have a huge amount of time.
We've nothing to lose from that and everything to gain. And
yes.
I think that where people might have stalled in conversations was around this fear that perhaps we have to lose something in order to take on this knowledge. And, of course, we know that's not true. We can build our knowledge throughout our lifetime, and, in fact, we must.
That's it. Okay, thank you for answering my deep question. That's wonderful.
That's quite all right. It is early. I'll have to have another coffee to make up for that.
I have to wind up,
macchiato.
tighten the rubber band at the back.
Well done.
Now, let's come back to what you're here for. I mean,
Yes.
you've come up from Melbourne.
Yes, I
You've
have.
got a premiere of one of your works coming up this weekend,
Yeah.
which we'll talk about in a minute. But because the concert, it's a big free event, everybody is welcome along. On Sunday, I just thought we'd take a little piece of music. We obviously don't have yours because it's a premiere and it hasn't been recorded yet. But this is another piece that is from that concert, is by William Byrd, and it's called Sing Joyfully.
Sing joyfully, sing joyfully,
The very lovely piece that was called Sing Joyfully by William Byrd from the 1500s. So they'll be performing that. This is the Sydney Philharmonia Choirs will be joining together on Sunday morning at dawn, right at dawn. And that original recording was performed by the Choir of Clare College, Cambridge, conducted by Timothy Brown. Did that recording. But yes, it will be Sunday, and Deborah Cheetham is who I have in the studio with me at the moment, and you've got a premiere coming up.
I do. It's always exciting to have a premiere, particularly one that I'm not actually singing in.
You're going to be in the audience then?
I will. It is at dawn. We're recommending that people arrive before 5:30 if they want to get the very best vantage point. It's a free concert, of course, on the monumental steps of the Sydney Opera House. And first up is this acknowledgement of country, and it was such an honour to be
which is your work, right?
Which is my work. I'll give the Gadigal title, shall I?
Yes.
It's Tarimi Nule, and basically put, it's long time here live the people, or long time living here. And when Brett Waymark approached me to, the conductor of the Sydney Philharmonia, of course, approached me to write this work. Simply put, he said, we want to sing it as the first item in every concert in our centenary year. And I thought, what an incredible honour. I grew up listening to this choir. I think there are still members in the current choir who were singing when I first started going along to concerts in the 70s, which is a lovely point of continuity. So I set about with Matthew Doyle, who's a local Indigenous man who's been championing Gadigal language forever. And we came up with this text. Would you like to hear it?
I don't know if we've got enough time to listen to the whole thing.
It's 3 lines.
Oh, that's
of
all right.
text.
3 lines is
3 lines of text. So, Tari minule nalawa yura. Garabara baraya yagu barabugu. Ninini nara ninini berong. And that is long time here live the people, dancing and singing today and tomorrow. It's your way of knowing and your way of belonging.
Beautiful.
So it's an acknowledgement of the Gadigal people that any non-Indigenous person or an Indigenous person from a different community can speak or sing.
Beautiful. Well, I think we should all head along there. So I did already check, and the trains and the buses will be on by that stage.
Yes.
So everybody can get into town and head towards the monumental steps on the Sydney Opera House and see hundreds of people. It will be literally hundreds from the Sydney Philharmonia, probably the combined choirs.
It's the big choir. There are over
400 or 500.
I can't tell you the exact numbers, but they sound like 400 or 500. They're an exceptional choir.
They are, and it's such a wide variety of music in this. It's all a cappella for this concert.
Yes.
So it'll be really lovely. I think I've been to one other performance that they did quite a long time ago on the Bondi Beach part of the Sydney Festival to see the dawn rise, and that was just divine, really divine. So I think this will be wonderful as well, and we look forward to hearing your premiere.
Thanks so much, Annabelle.
Lovely. Thanks, Deborah.